On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. When he texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Happy Monday. Happy holidays to all of you watching here across the SportsGrid networks on television and radio as well. We got a fun show planned for you. And, of course, we will be here tomorrow on the show for Christmas Eve. And, of course, on Wednesday, I'll be with you hosting in the afternoon around this time, by the way. But a different kind of show as we have some NFL programming to go over. It's also Hanukkah on Wednesday. So happy holidays to all of you who are celebrating across the country and watching us wherever you are. Also, Matt Lutovsky will be with us here on the program today. We'll go over the latest on Monday Night Football, recap some of yesterday. Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider on the very latest around the National Football League. And in addition, Pat Evans joins us from Legal Sports Report. So those are the guests. We've got a stacked show, as we usually do on Monday. So without further ado, enough about me. Let me get to everything about the National Football League. We start off with a potential situation with the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, suffered a concussion on the field on Sunday in their loss against the Washington Commanders. He's currently in the concussion protocol. No word yet as to whether or not he's going to play this week. So it's potentially a week-to-week thing. We know how these concussions go. Could be longer, could be shorter, could even play this week. But no question about it. Right now, the Commanders seem to be in a position to even maybe play Philadelphia one more time in the first round of the playoffs. That would be the setup, and it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. But the Commanders yesterday ended up coming back to get the victory. Jaden Daniels, 5 touchdown passes. Here's Nick Sirianni on the status of Hurts.
Yeah, I haven't talked to the medical staff yet, so I don't have any updates on any of that stuff.
It seemed like he wanted to go in, and then he came out. Can you kind of walk us through what happened there on the sideline?
Yeah, anything that has anything to do with the head is out of our hands there.
Kind of a weird game where you scored 33 points with your backup. The defense forces 5 turnovers, but you still lose. Just curious what your biggest takeaway is from it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I have to be able to watch the tape and tell you everything what happened, but just sloppy. Sloppy with penalties, sloppy with too many men on the field, sloppy with our fundamentals. And when you play a good football team like we played today, and you're sloppy regardless of how many turnovers you force, it's going to be hard to win. And I think, what I said to those guys is when it's sloppy with every piece of that, that's always going to be on me as the head coach.
All right, we'll see what the Eagles do moving forward. Again, they're still in a position to get a first-round bye in the NFC. Now, meanwhile, all the Dallas Cowboys had to do is have their season go up in smoke to start playing well. I guess, because that's what's going on. The Cowboys stay alive barely in the NFC playoff chase. They beat the Buccaneers 26-24 as Cooper Rush and that offense of the Cowboys has woken up in the winter. It's been a sleepy September and October, but for whatever reason, they've come alive. Bucs, no problem on offense. In fact, they had a chance to win this game late, but they fell short. Meanwhile, they no longer control their own destiny. They were a 4-point favorite going into the game, and the Cowboys win the game outright, which has Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield supremely upset.
I mean, we lost. It's disappointing. All 3 phases plus coaching. We got to coach it better. We got to play better on special teams. We got to play better offensively and defensively. We lost. We fell back in the pack. We got to eat it. Can't spend too much time on it. We had our chances. We had our chances just like everybody else, but it's a long season. We got 2 more games to go. We got to take care of us and then let everything else take care of itself.
I said it all along. This group will not quit, and I'll be damned if anybody does. That's the standard that we try and set. It'd be nice to not have to be in that situation if we would have taken care of business earlier in the game, but comes down to little things late in the game and trying to execute, and gave ourselves a chance. And defense gave us a chance as well, so we just got to execute. I mean, I didn't learn anything new about the fight that we have. It's never been a question. For me, it's next man up mentality. I mean, overall, it's about the ball. I think everybody needs to learn that. It's obvious, I know, but even when you have 2 hands on it, got to be overprotective with it, and that starts with me too.
Right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to need some help to get in the playoffs. By the way, quick correction, Cowboys, even though they won last night, eliminated from the NFC. All right, the beat rolls on for the Minnesota Vikings. They're now 13-2 on the season. Who had that one at the beginning of the year? Very close, exciting game right down to the finish. They beat Seattle on the road 27-24. The Arizona Cardinals at one point led the NFC West. They were eliminated yesterday by the Carolina Panthers 36-30. Cardinals were favored. Chuba Hubbard had a big game on the ground. Also, the Miami Dolphins, I believe, if I'm not wrong about them, they're still alive in the AFC. They beat San Francisco. They've been eliminated 29-17. 49ers were favored. And the Rams go across the country and beat the Jets. It was cold. It was ugly. I think I saw that the Jets didn't punt once but scored 9 points. Is that right? 19-9 was the final there, as the Rams are now the heavy favorite to win the NFC West. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions get back on track. They beat the Bears 34-17. Also, Josh Allen and the Bills, they improved to 12-3. They were scared a little bit against New England. Not sure how that happened, 24-21. The Bengals are still very much alive in the playoffs. How about this? 24-6 the final. They got a late touchdown to put things away with the Cleveland Browns. And Joe Burrow says winning and staying alive is where it's at.
We've had great energy in practice. Guys flying around, dancing, very vocal. Practice has been fun the last couple of weeks, and I think it really starts with the defense. The DBs are always bringing great energy at practice, and that's not really my personality. I'm more of a, what do I have to do on this play, trying to get motions and shifts and trying to operate. And so when you're in practice and you feel your DBs and your defense flying around, being vocal, making plays, makes practice fun.
Have you ever thrown a touchdown pass falling flat in your face?
That one was crazy. No, I have not. My brother sent me a picture of it after the game. I might have to post that one.
I mean, it looked like you were reading a base when you get up.
I was parallel. I don't know how I threw it, but that one was pretty cool.
Burrow having probably the most underrated season for a quarterback right now in the NFL. All right, Michael Penix Jr., his first career start is a win and a blowout, 34-7 against the New York Giants. My gosh, the Giants are having one of those seasons to forget. They also were rooting very heavily for the Las Vegas Raiders yesterday so they could get the number 1 pick in the draft, and they came through. The Raiders beat the Jaguars 19-14, so right now it would be the Giants at the number 1 overall pick. Of course, on Saturday football, Kansas City won 27-19 over the Texans. And the Ravens have taken control of the NFC North. They beat the Steelers 34-17. All right, the college football playoffs on Saturday. I was pumping this up all week long as the best weekend ever of college football and pro football together. It was not. I ain't going to lie to you. Those games were horrible on Saturday. 42-17. Ohio State beats Tennessee. My gosh, the SEC had a tough time here. We're playing all these narratives as to who should be in and who should be out, but naturally, Tennessee should not have gone forward, I guess you could say. Also, Texas picks up a win, 38-24 over Clemson. that game final. Texas covers the spread there easily. Penn State also wins 38-10. That game was a blowout, so really nothing to discuss as far as that is concerned. But I would say the one positive for Penn State is not only did they win, but they got a lot of turnovers in that game, and that was what James Franklin was happy about.
You look at the stats that we focus on, the takeaway battle was big. 3 turnovers to 1. Explosive play battle, we won that. Third down battle, we won that. We tied the sack battle. The penalty battle, we won. That's a whole nother conversation. And then the middle 8, we won the middle 8. So ton of cool stuff. I can go on and on and on. But we got a team win, led from our defense in the beginning of the game. But at the end of the game, it was a team win. Offense, defense, and special teams. So
Myrtle Beach Bowl going on right now as we speak. First football game live on NewsWire in a really long time. We have a live game going on right now. UTSA opened up as 8-point favorites. I guess some players are out for Coastal Carolina because this is now 12.5. Also, Northern Illinois plays Fresno State in the Idaho Potato Bowl later. Free agent signings. Jock Peterson signs a 1-year deal with the Texas Rangers. Sean Manaea is going back to the Mets on a 3-year deal. Phillies and Marlins made a trade yesterday. Jesus Luzardo goes to Philadelphia. The Nationals have traded for Nathaniel Lowe and Walker Buehler, according to reports, of signing a 1-year deal with the Boston Red Sox. Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News is up next.
Opportunities to make the NCAA tournament. Simply put, folks, when we get to the tournament, we don't care about all these teams that are big-time teams.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest, and we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Got Matt Lutovsky here to recap the weekend, and a lot happened. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I guess we'll do the NFL because that's what's like in the forefront of our minds. But we had so much news in college football, college basketball, NHL, NBA, and then, of course, baseball news and signings. Matt, welcome back. Happy holidays. I don't know. I mean, it took the Cowboys all season long to wake up, I guess. I'm having a hard time figuring this thing out. Why Dallas decided to play their best football without their quarterback in Dak Prescott. And the one thing that I say a lot here on the show, Matt, is that I'm a firm believer in there are few, if not no, good backup quarterbacks in the National Football League. And I think I'm going to give a little caveat to this Cooper Rush, because I think that this guy has earned himself a chance to go on, like some bad team and maybe compete for a job or something like that. This guy Rush is not bad.
Yeah, and we've seen it before from him where he's had good stretches in the past filling in. And it was a little bit of a rocky start this year when he took over for Dak Prescott, but he, eventually seemed to get his legs under him. And it's a shame that they're out of the playoff race. Well, probably most people wouldn't agree with that, but it seems like they are playing good ball right now. And it would be nice to see them continue with a little more on the line in these last couple games. But yeah, he's a solid, I think, all-around quarterback, certainly a highly sought-after backup, if nothing else. And given the turnover we're probably going to see this offseason, it's not a deep draft class, at least for immediate impact starters. It doesn't look like. I could see him getting a chance somewhere, being that bridge quarterback for a team that misses out on maybe the big free agent and doesn't have a pick high enough to get one of the top guys in the draft, and he'll get his shot, and we'll see what he can do. But the Cowboys have two guys like that, and Trey Lance too, who still hasn't really gotten a shot yet, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with him this summer as well.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield, had a nice game, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, over 300 yards, but naturally the Bucs defense did not come through in this one. Baker's had a great year, and I think in the end, even if they don't make the playoffs, he'll be back in Tampa. There's really not a lot to dislike about his season. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons, they went down 7-0 to the Giants, Matt, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like here we go. But in the end, the best came out with the Atlanta Falcons, maybe in their top offensive game in a couple of months. Michael Penix Jr. did enough to win this game. The Giants did enough to give the game away in a big way, 34-7. So I don't know that I can look too much into this just yet, but the Atlanta Falcons somehow, Matt, are back in the driver's seat of that division. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, they are. And, it was interesting yesterday after that game. There was a lot of glowing reports about Penix. You look at the numbers, there's really nothing special there. The interception wasn't his fault. That's a ball that should have been caught by Kyle Pitts. But nonetheless, you look at those numbers, especially against the Giants, you think, well, Kirk Cousins could have done that. But the reports were very positive. Penix had more zip on the ball. There was a little more athleticism. And look, at the end of the day, if the guys are playing a little harder for whatever reason, they trust their quarterback more, they're more inspired by that quarterback, then it's a positive thing. But playing the Giants, this was kind of a glorified preseason game. That's not to say that the starters weren't playing hard. I mean, those guys are competing for jobs for the next season and beyond. But nonetheless, this was sort of the ultimate, dip your toe in the water, and we'll see how it goes from here for Michael Penix, because next week they got the Commanders in primetime, and that's going to be a real game. And we'll see if the Falcons made the right decision then, or at least we'll get a better idea of it. And it'll be interesting because he didn't do enough to wow anyone in this game, but he also didn't do enough to say, oh, he needs to go back to the bench.
Yeah, I mean, unequivocally, the Giants are the worst team in the NFL. I mean, I think that they're worse than the Raiders when O'Connell was playing. So, again, I agree with you there. I don't think anything's been proven, and the odds makers have told us that's the case because Tampa Bay is still favored to win the division. They are minus 135 over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, so naturally it tells you let's just wait and see a little more on Penix before we make that call. All right, so the Washington Commanders, Matt, I mean, they are a dangerous team. I've been talking about them for months here. I understand they have their warts. They've won games maybe they shouldn't have, and they've come down to the end. But, man, do they have this equalizer in Jaden Daniels, who is just scratching the surface as to what he is going to be. What's funny to me is I see a lot of Eagles fans on social media saying, well, there's no way they're going to beat us 3 times in a row. They've already beat them twice. It looks like they're going to match up in the first round of the playoffs, too. And I assume Jalen Hurts will be back. I know he had a concussion. But I'm here to tell you, I would not feel comfortable going into any game against Jaden Daniels. And by the way, that goes for any team in the NFC right now. I said at the beginning of the year, the only thing I've gotten right, I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl, Matt, but I think they're going to give a team some problems. I don't think they're going to be a one-and-done team.
Well, they're not an easy out. There's no getting around that. The way Jaden Daniels can extend plays, make big plays all on his own. There's something to this idea that, some quarterbacks just have it. There really is. Sometimes we make fun of that, especially if you're a more analytical-based sports, commentator, analyst. And I think he has it, though. For whatever it is, he's got it. They rally, they get behind him, and he carries the team. And they have some really good playmakers. They have a good enough running game. I think that's where he's relied on to do a little bit too much. The big thing to me with that team is when a team gets to focus on them ahead of a playoff game, is it going to be trouble? We know that the Cliff Kingsbury offense can get bogged down. It can sort of get figured out, for lack of a better way to say it. It looked like they were going to have that second half slump. That's typical of a Kingsbury offense, but they've found a way to win some of these games. So it's going to be a tough out for them, and beating Philadelphia the way they have, that's got to go a long way toward their confidence.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see in the future what Washington does. All right, so you know what? Let's do Monday Night Football. Let's get to this tonight. So the Packers are 14.5-point favorites. The narrative on the season and the data tells us, Matt, that every big favorite covers in the NFL this year. If you are laying the points like this, you are winning. Almost a 15-point favorite over on the FanDuel Sportsbook with a total of 43.5. Can you sell me on the Saints, Matt? Sell me on taking the Saints tonight. How can you do it?
Well, look, we just got done raving about the Commanders, and the Saints nearly beat them last week. So, yeah, I think we can try to talk ourselves into it. Spencer Rattler's scrappy, right? He's got that going for him. But, no, I can't really do a good job of it. I can't say it with a straight face. I mean, maybe if this game was in New Orleans, maybe. But the Packers with something to play for out in the cold against a team where at least most of the good players are not playing. Yeah, this just feels like a beatdown. This feels like an ugly one that we're all going to be saying, why didn't the NFL flex this game by about 9 o'clock?
I agree. Have a good week, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I want the mid-major teams. I want the A-10 to get 3 bids. I want, the Missouri Valley Conference to get an extra bid. I want these teams to go ahead that are one-bid leagues and give some of these other teams opportunities to make the NCAA tournament. Simply put, folks, when we get to the tournament, we don't care about all these teams that are big-time teams.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December and we see 7, 8 teams open and none of them want Bill, then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Time to dive into the latest in college football and get a preview of Monday Night Football. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, let's begin with some college football. On Friday night, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish took care of Indiana relatively easily. But now things get a little bit more difficult for Notre Dame. In fact, I think all the games get a little bit more difficult because they're not playing at home. I think that was a big oversight by college football, is to have all these first-round games at home. I think they got to be neutral sites going in the next year. Just too much up against it for these road teams. But I digress. Let's get into it. Marcus Freeman, very fortunate to be the head coach of Notre Dame. Not that he's done a bad job. I'm just saying he's in a great spot right now. Head coach of Notre Dame, contract extension, going to the second round of the playoffs. But now they get the University of Georgia. And here's what he had to say about it.
We wouldn't be up in this situation if we didn't have 12 wins. So I'm grateful to be a part of a program and a team that has been able to accomplish this. But, I'm greedy, and my focus is, although I don't want their focus to be on it, my focus is going to be on finding a way to get 13. And that's what matters, right? And that's what's going to be important, is to enjoy this thing but get ready for the next opportunity. But you know what? I'm fortunate to be a part of a special football program, a special group of people from top down, from our president to our chairman of the board to our athletic director, on down to the people in our football program. This is a special place, it's a special program, and I'm fortunate to just be a part of it. I know I'm the head coach. You're going to get some praise, you're going to get criticism when things are down, but I'm a part of something special with a special group of guys.
All right, so now let's move on to the big game with the University of Texas. They move on and going to play in the Peach Bowl against Arizona State. Here's a preview with head coach Steve Sarkisian.
What an environment for college football this was. From the moment we pulled up on the buses, our Bevo walk, you could feel the energy. The crowd was tremendous. It was a great atmosphere. I think, college football got this one right. As much as we critique some of the things that are happening in our game right now, this idea of a home playoff game with this 12-team format, this was pretty special, and one that we were humbled and honored to be part of here at DKR. So I hope everybody enjoyed that, because we surely did. Heck of a game. The story of the game, I think, obviously, is us finding the run game offensively. To have two 100-yard rushers in the game and establishing ourselves on the ground to create balance offensively, I thought was critical to the game. And then to get some really key stops defensively, especially there in the fourth quarter. The goal line stand, and then obviously the stop there at the end on fourth down was big. And just proud of our guys. You get into playoff mode. It's not really about what did it look like. It's, do you have one more point than they have to come out on top so you can continue to play? And we get to continue to play here in a couple weeks in Atlanta, and we're obviously very excited about that.
A preview of Monday Night Football is next. Before we get to the next round of college football, we've got a game to discuss. Saints on the road at the Green Bay Packers. Can the Packers cover this big line? Here's our very own Joe Madden.
We got an interesting Monday Night Football game here between the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers are 14.5-point favorite at home, and rightly so. You look here at the Saints, this team without their star running back, Alvin Kamara, without Kamara on the field, someone is going to have to step up, because we do have rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler under center. While he looked good in the last game, how will he fare versus the defense here of the Packers is a question mark. I do expect some big plays out of him. I could see him getting those short passes in the red zone for the touchdowns, but where I really want to look is Kendre Miller here, the running back for the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to oat up his rushing yards. I think he hits 100 in this game and is really strong. We will look at a Saints team that will want to own the time and possession out there to keep Jordan Love off the field. We know this offense can score at will, so you can't allow them to be out. You also look at the defense here of the Saints. They need to come up big in this game if the Saints have the opportunity of getting the win. They're going to have to force those turnovers. Jordan Love to throw the interception is in play in this game. We look at Jordan Love, 11 interceptions on the season. The defense here of the Saints has been able to force 13 turnovers. Can they get the pick six? I think they can. I think the Saints stay competitive in this one. Give me the Saints plus the 14.5. And then my favorite bet is Kendre Miller over 100+ rushing yards. You guys, all the best in all your bets. Back to you, Craig.
All right. Thanks so much, Joe. We'll take a quick timeout. Pat Evans is up next from Legal Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Don't go away.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I want the mid-major teams. I want the A-10 to get 3 bids. I want, the Missouri Valley Conference to get an extra bid. I want these teams to go ahead that are one-bid leagues and give some of these other teams opportunities to make the NCAA tournament. Simply put, folks, when we get to the tournament, we don't care about all these teams that are big-time teams.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill, then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I actually have a lot of news to go over here on the show today. I didn't think that would be the case here. Just a couple of days before Hanukkah, Christmas. Pat Evans is with us from Legal Sports Report. He's getting ready for the holidays as well. And so happy holidays, Pat. We got some fun stories to review. Let's start off with a state in the South, Georgia. Hey, look at here. Maybe a possibility. That sports betting comes to Georgia in the next year or so.
I mean, yeah, this is, again, something you and I talk about all the time the past couple of years, is because Georgia has been one of the states that seems like it could get it done. Of course, they run into issues every year that kind of break it up and it doesn't get done. But earlier this month at Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports company that offers a suite of pick'em products, opened a new, they hadn't opened it. It was a ribbon cutting for their new headquarters in Atlanta. And Governor Brian Kemp showed up and he said, you know what, I've been neutral on sports betting. I remain that way. That's my, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but this is, I'm going to stay neutral. However, if you're going to do it, let's put this money to good use and kind of outline some things like K through 12 education and other uses like that. So it's more of, it's not necessarily an endorsement by him for sure, because he says he's still neutral, but it is an indication that he is certainly open to the discussion, and we'll see where it goes. Last year, there was a great bipartisan collaboration to get a bill in the Senate going. It eventually fell apart because there were different factions that said, we need a constitutional amendment, which requires way more votes to pass. And so it fell apart. This year, the senators seem to be kind of putting it in the House's court. If the House wants to do it, then they'll take it up when it gets over. So kind of punting it from that point of view. But I expect something in the House to happen. And so the governor neutral, but sees positives. And, that comes on the heels of an op-ed we saw from a sponsor earlier this month, or it might have been last month, but that said, hey, the voters that turned it from a Democrat state in 2020 in the presidential election and turned it to a Republican state in 2024, that's the demographics that love sports betting. Let's give them sports betting. So it's going to be a fun 2025 legislative session in Georgia.
Yeah, indeed. And that would be one really big state bordering my state here in Florida. All right. Not surprising here. And you have an article about this over at legalsportsreport.com. There's a possibility. Now, again, a possibility because a bill has been introduced. One of the more peculiar items to bet on to me all these years has been the election. And it does seem like this one non-sports event, there's a chance that this ends up going away. But I guess the question I would ask, Pat, is why? Why is this being introduced to get rid of it? I get it, but why are they saying it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of integrity concerns around election betting. A lot of money going into something that can have such a huge consequence on everything. That's kind of, I think, the main, operative thought behind this. Representative Andrea Salinas and Jamie Raskin have introduced a bill that is the same as Jeff Merkley's bill to ban election betting. There was a long fight kind of back from 2022. The trading platform Kalshi wanted to offer election betting, which is basically a stock platform versus actual, sports book betting in that sense. So you buy into it, and it creates a stock market like vibe, and it can be done nationwide. And it got approval in October or September, October, around there. And between then and election day, it had $900 million wagered on it on U.S. House, Senate, and the presidential election. So it is a, interested market there that exists for this product. But yeah, the politicians are kind of saying, wait a second, this isn't something we kind of want people to bet on. That seems like you're betting on America's future in a weird way in that sense. So they're taking it to potentially get rid of it, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, so the biggest story that we have to talk about today is kind of like a breaking story, but we're both Pat and I, by the way, we're trying to make heads or tails of this one. This is a difficult one. So there is a cryptocurrency exchange called Crypto.com. I'm very familiar with them. I'll leave it at that. But Crypto.com, they're a cryptocurrency exchange, and they made an announcement today that essentially you could have what's called sports event trading on their app. Now, Pat, what is the difference between sports event trading and sports betting? Because they're framing this, interestingly enough, in a way where you can bet, as from what I see on the app right here, any team you can bet on to win the Super Bowl for a certain amount of money. $20, $10, $5. And in the end, you win 100 if you win the Super Bowl. It's like a straight bet. So naturally, some purchases are less than others. For example, the Bills, you buy them for 20. If they win, you win 100. So it's 5-1. Same thing with the Chiefs. The Dolphins are 2%. So it's $2 to win 100. It's a much longer odd. But I'm saying something that's not true. It's not betting, though, according to them. It's not betting. It's sports event trading. How in the world did this pop up like this? And very specifically, what is like California and Texas going to have to say about this? Maybe it's also in places where you can use Crypto.com. My understanding is I think it's throughout the country, United States, you can use it. So a lot to unpack here for me, and I guess I'm going to probably need more time understanding this.
I mean, hey, it just popped up right before the show started. I came on here just trying to wrap my head around it myself. But it is actually very similar to the election betting. It is registered and regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. So it is a nationwide thing. It is basically, again, a stock market-like purchase. So, this is something that people have looked at. And when Robinhood started talking about offering sports betting potentially, it's great for futures bets, and futures prop bets and season win totals and whatever you want to say, because you can buy into it and then watch it go throughout the year and see what happens. So it's not necessarily straight betting. I would expect kind of similar thought processes behind what the politicians behind the banning of the election betting is doing, because, it is an interesting kind of workaround from the state by state level regulations for sports betting that we've seen, pop up over the last 8 years. I mean, as you said, you're still trying to wrap your head around. I am too. I know as soon as I get off the show here, I'm going to have to go kind of bang heads together and with the LSR team and figure out exactly what we need to do, because what a day to do this before the Christmas holiday, to bring this news out there. And as a news, reporter, I have to figure it out. So yeah, kind of your guess is as good as mine right now as to how it's going to be received by customers and states, and see what it goes. But it is federally regulated at this point, it sounds like, from the CFTC. So we'll see. It's going to be fun to watch. Not super happy that it's happening over the holidays, though.
And technically it is not sports betting, but I got news for you. In states where sports betting is not legal, we have not heard I mean, listen, I'm for it, obviously, because any sports betting to me is good. But in states where it's not legal, I cannot imagine that this is just going to be a simple, workaround. And then all of a sudden it just becomes, can we use Crypto.com in California, in Texas, in Utah, place like, I don't know. We'll have to circle back on this hopefully next week. Sorry to ruin your holiday. All right, finally, another sports book coming to Kentucky. I believe this is their 9th. Is that right?
Yeah, Prime Sports, a very small sports book in mostly Ohio, is launching in Kentucky, and it's a very niche, kind of for whales and sharp bettors. There's no limits and the like, so they're kind of building out from there. Ohio, I think they're in New Jersey as well, so see what the customer base is in Kentucky. I think that's a super interesting state, potentially because of all the horse racing. So maybe that's what they see in terms of ideal bettors. But yeah, another state, another sports book for Kentucky. So that's fun little launch news here over the holidays.
All right. Well, Pat, have a happy holiday to you and your family. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire, and you and I'm sure we'll talk again after. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you as always, Craig.
All right, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider, is up next. Is the Jalen Hurts concussion serious? Will he miss several weeks, 1 week? We'll go over that game and all the rest coming up next.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I want the mid-major teams. I want the A-10 to get 3 bids. I want, the Missouri Valley Conference to get an extra bid. I want these teams to go ahead that are 1-bid leagues and give some of these other teams opportunities to make the NCAA tournament. Simply put, folks, when we get to the tournament, we don't care about all these teams that are big-time teams.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Adam Caplan and I have quite a bit to talk about, so let's get started. Adam, happy holidays to you. One of the more exciting games, probably the most exciting game yesterday, was watching this game between the team that I know that you follow maybe more closely than some others, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. Eagles go up big. It looks like it's a wrap, but here comes the Commanders again. How many times have we seen this before? When the Commanders are down big, they come back and win. When they're up big, they come back and another team comes back. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. It has been, to me, one of the more fun teams to watch. And now they've beaten Philadelphia 2 times. If I'm not mistaken, there's a strong possibility. I don't know if that's fair to say that they play a 3rd time. Is that fair or still ways away from that?
All right. So actually the Eagles won the first matchup. If you remember the game earlier this season, about 5-6 weeks ago, the Commanders actually led at Lincoln Financial Stadium going to the 4th quarter, and then Barkley went off. They actually went up by double digits, and Zach Ertz had a touchdown and 2-point conversion makes the score closer. But this game was wild. I mean, this game had so much drama, but as you set up very well before we started here at the last break, is that Jalen Hurts had a concussion very early in the game. And that changed the way the Eagles really handled their offense. Yes, the offense went through Saquon Barkley, but the second half, the Commanders crashed the run. The Eagles didn't spread their offense out at all. They went with a traditional passing game and run offense with Kenny Pickett, who, by the way, bruised his ribs in the game. But it just didn't work. They actually shut down Saquon Barkley for the most part. After he had 170 yards in the first quarter, 2 touchdowns. But this is what happens when Jalen Hurts is not in. Defenses play them differently, and that's why the game was as close as it was.
Yeah, I think obviously that's the case, but Washington just can't be counted out in like any game with this quarterback that they got going on right now. Pickett, if he has to play one more week, 143 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, did enough to stay in the game. Their defense let them down there. All right, so Minnesota wins again here. Like, I mean, what's to say, Adam, about them? Like, I'm not a huge fan of their team, but their defense does more than enough to win every game. They didn't do really enough yesterday, but they ended up winning this one 27-24. They go on the road. I mean, are they going to win 15 games this season? The Minnesota Vikings? Adam, you remember when the Vikings many, many years ago were like the best team in the NFL and they went into the playoffs? I forget what happened. Maybe it was with Cunningham. I don't remember, but they ended up losing.
98. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. 98. Man, I would hate to say it feels like the same team here, but to me it kind of does. Hate to say that, though.
Well, you and I are seeing the same way. I'm shocked. Listen, the odds makers, depending on which book you were looking at, gave him 6.5 wins, 7, which I thought was being nice, to be honest with you, because Sam Darnold, Craig, never played well in his career for a prolonged period of time. Talking to people who work with him, gritty, tough, athletic, but the problem is the turnovers. Sometimes he gets stuck in the pocket, doesn't know where to go with the football, but that's not happening this season. That's why they're so much better. He's not turning it over hardly at all. Now, yesterday, I'll tell you, there was a pass he threw over the middle in the second half. That ball should have been picked off, but Seattle didn't, and that to me was a game changer. Because don't forget, Seattle was getting crushed in that game. Then they came back and actually took the lead, but you got to give Sam Darnold credit. He's going to be my most improved player when I vote for the Pro Football Writers Association. There's no question about it. I didn't see this coming because, Craig, it's kind of ironically like Geno Smith, 10 years and he'd never done anything. You just figure at a certain point in a guy's career, he's just a backup. Right. And that's all Sam Darnold was. And then the other question that we talked about yesterday on Pro Football Today was, what if the Vikings make it to the championship game? Are they really going to turn to J.J. McCarthy next season? We'll have to see about that.
Yeah, it's a fair question to ask based on the way Darnold has played. And if they go far, it's almost impossible to think that he wouldn't. Lions yesterday throttled the Bears. I don't know what's left to say about the Bears. They're horrible, but the Lions needed this win, 34-17. They get it. They're still minus 300 to win the division, or number 1 seed, Minnesota is plus 3-1. You know what? We don't need to spend more time on that. Let's get to what I think is more interesting. Are the Bengals alive here? Like, they feel like the team right now, Adam, that has the best shot of the outside teams looking in. They win 24-6 against the Browns. I know they sleptwalked through a lot of this game. Game was a little bit closer. If the Browns had any quarterback play at all, they may have kept it close. But I got to tell you, I'd be a little scared if I was Denver, if I were the Chargers, the Dolphins. Like, to me, the Bengals are the best team of all of those teams going right now.
Yeah, and look, Denver, we'll get back to Cincinnati in a second. Denver choked that game. I mean, that was a game they should have had. You have to win a game like that when you are dominating in the first half against the Chargers. You gotta finish it off, and they didn't. They're going to look back at that game. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a game they're going to look at and say they should have won it. And then you look at the Bengals team. Look, with Joe Burrow, you always have a chance. Their defense, we've talked about this before on NewsWire. At times, it's been not competitive. Yes, yesterday, DTR, Thompson Robinson, should be playing quarterback. He's a third stringer, but that's all they have left. So they're going with him. Jameis Winston, by the way, has got a shoulder injury, but you saw the turnovers with him. But getting back to the Bengals, see, the thing about it, if they could get in the playoffs, somehow sneak in, we've seen this over the years with great quarterback play. It's like a goalie in hockey. They say stands on his head. You could carry a football team. But what's going to do the team in, no matter what happens, is their defense. It's just not good enough. I'm surprised, like most people. We thought a lot better of Lou Anarumo, the defense coordinator, their defense, but they just have not risen to the occasion this season.
Yep. They need to beat the Broncos. They'll need a loss from Miami or Indianapolis, and then they got to beat the Steelers, and then the Chiefs have to beat the Broncos. By the way, all of these things could easily happen. I guess my concern for them would be the Colts, because the Giants are awful and they were at home against the Jaguars. That's going to be tough with Indy needing those wins. All right, let's quickly go to Monday Night Football. Let's do it here, Adam. So the big spread teams have covered the number all season long. I think it's an undefeated spread here. Anytime a team is 10 or more, they cover. 14.5-point spread tonight. I could not tell you 5 players playing for the Saints tonight. I don't think I could. And usually I can do that very easily. I cannot do that tonight. Any reason to think that they could keep this thing close? If the Packers just simply win tonight for me and I nail the points, I win my bowl pool this week. So I have a reason to watch tonight.
Yeah, I definitely think the Packers will cover this number. The Saints, without Alvin Kamara, they're going to have trouble moving the football. They have yet another quarterback change. They're an absolute mess. The Packers, by the way, they're playing good football. They're just in the toughest division of the National Football League, and they're going to be a wild card team in the playoffs.
Adam, great to catch up with you. We'll see you again after the holidays. Thanks again for coming on.
You got it. Thank you.
Adam Caplan with us here on the show. We'll wrap it up with some last licks coming up next. Don't go away.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I want the mid-major teams. I want the A-10 to get 3 bids. I want, the Missouri Valley Conference to get an extra bid. I want these teams to go ahead that are 1-bid leagues and give some of these other teams opportunities to make the NCAA tournament. Simply put, folks, when we get to the tournament, we don't care about all these teams that are big-time teams.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The college football playoffs continue, and the first weekend officially in the books. Also a huge moment for one of the best players that has ever played professional golf. It's time now for some last licks. All right, let's get things started with our huge weekend that we just had here on SportsGrid of college football coverage. Now, I would say the coverage was great. That's true. But the games were not. My gosh. I mean, to think that Friday night's game between Indiana and Notre Dame was the best game of the 4, what in the world happened here? Now, look, I don't have all the answers. I know everyone is saying that the wrong teams got in the playoff. But to me, the one common denominator of all of these things is it looked to be like the road teams were not well prepared in that first round after playing a full season of college football. So to me, that's the easiest change, at least for the first round, neutral site. Look, I know they're not going to sell as many tickets as they probably want to, and you're going to have to get a lot of traveling going back and forth. But what we saw this past Saturday, definitely not the answer. Every game was basically over before it started. I know the point spread factored into the Clemson-Texas game, and Clemson scored some points there at the end. But honestly, the best weekend that was supposed to be of college football in our history turned out to be one of the worst. It was just a brutal stretch of games, and no games were close going into the fourth quarter. The ratings, they got crushed by the NFL. Not a surprise there. All right, Spencer Rattler getting ready to start tonight in Green Bay, Lambeau Field. Probably my favorite place I've ever been in football to see a game in Lambeau Field. And I have been there when it's been I believe the game that I went to was 5 degrees or 4 degrees, the game I was there. Well, Spencer Rattler told reporters that he's ready for the challenge. It's supposed to be around 30 degrees tonight, so that's fine. And they're prepared because he and the quarterback coach, Andrew Janico, brought the quarterbacks into a walk-in freezer to prepare for the game tonight. So literally, like the show The Bear, I don't know if you saw that, where the chef would get locked in the freezer. They are locking Spencer Rattler, maybe it's going to be Stratler, who cares, won't make a difference, in the freezer tonight to get him ready for the big game. Folks, I got to tell you, it ain't going to work. Because no matter how long you're in there, it ain't like being at Lambeau Field, as cold as it is there. It is brutally cold. Doesn't matter how you pack yourself with clothes and hats and everything else, Rattler is going to have a hard time tonight, and the Packers are going to win. One of the best moments this weekend in sports had to be Charlie Woods playing with his dad, Tiger Woods, getting all the way down to the end in the Father and Son Classic. And Charlie Woods with an eagle. That's right, an eagle. And an ace on the course, a hole-in-one. He and his dad played so well. It was honestly, I don't recall seeing Tiger Woods and that smile in a long time like that. But you could just tell how awesome it is. And by the way, Charlie Woods maybe end up being a really good golfer too. I mean, he's on the way to being that. So congratulations to him and congratulations to Tiger. Charlie played great. Tiger played in it as well. And maybe we'll see the PGA Tour with a new Woods pretty soon. All right, that'll do it for the show today. Thanks again to all of you for watching. We got a great schedule up ahead for you. For those of you getting ready for the big Monday Night Football game, I know it's not big, but we'll call it big for the sake of ratings, for the sake of you watching SportsGrid here. Coming up a little bit later, we've got Pharrell Coast to Coast. He's on at 3 o'clock Eastern. That is followed by Game Time Decisions, and then all of the prop betting and all of the point spread betting. If you're looking for an edge on anything, just tune into Pro Football Today because they're coming your way at 7 p.m. Eastern through 8:15, and that's when it's kickoff, followed by In-Game Live Pro Football Game Day, and then Pro Football Today postgame has you covered with the wrap on tonight's game as well. Thanks to all of our guest contributors here on the program today. Of course, our guests on the show were Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report, and also thanks to Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider. If college bowl games are your thing tonight, we do have one for you. I don't know if it'll be a good game or bad. Can't promise anything based on what I've seen. It is the Idaho Potatoes Bowl. And tonight, you're going to get a chance to catch it this evening. It should be a really good game. I think most of these bowl games have been relatively close. But in the end, I think that probably I would say the better games for like the non-playoff games are coming up this weekend. Northern Illinois and Fresno State. By the way, UTSA, a live update here on our show. UTSA, 12-point favorites in the second quarter. They are up 14-0 on Coastal Carolina. Scintillating stuff in college football. Again, that'll do it for the show. I hope if you are not going to be streaming us tomorrow for Christmas Eve, I understand. But again, happy holidays to you, and I'll see you back here wherever you stream us back in. Just a reminder, we're back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, and then I'm on live with you at 1 p.m. Eastern during the NFL game. So hope you have a great rest of your Monday. Happy holidays. I'll see you tomorrow.